How to make a decision between two things. Often in our lives, we can get stuck in analysis paralysis. We just don't want to act. We don't want to choose between two things. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can make a decision between two things. I've got a 3-step process that can be very helpful to evaluate, gather your information, and then make that decision and commit to it. So with that being said, my name is Richardson. And in the past, I used to really struggle with making decisions. I used to not be able to pick between anything, even something as simple between what food I'm gonna eat, what game I'm gonna play on the Xbox, things that are so novel and don't matter in my life realistically. I just couldn't choose. And when I developed the ability to just start making choices of yes, no, it has been very helpful. And I still have work to do, but it has been a big change within my life that has made my life a lot easier. So I promise you by the end of this video, you will understand how to make a decision between two things in a very sound way. The first step with making a decision between two things is going to be to evaluate information, or ask yourself what information is missing that I need to make this decision. When you do this step, you may realize that you have all the information in the world and you just need to go through that information and sift through it to make the right decision. And that's where a pros and cons list can be really helpful. When I was choosing where to live in college, I did this. I know that's kind of silly, but I did it and it was really helpful. On top of the pros and cons list, you can ask yourself short-term versus long-term. And the way I like to think about this frame is that if I were to think about future me in 5 years, the person I want to be in 5 years, looking back, what decision would they choose? And using that mind frame can help me make a decision between two things. Now, on top of that, I also ask myself the question with these two decisions that I'm presented with, do they align with my one thing or my true north? And what I mean by one thing or true north is that true north is my set of values. As a person that I've identified and who I want to be, what are those values? And then does that align with that? On top of my true north, my one thing is my life's mission. What is my purpose in this world? And if you haven't watched our videos on the channel about purpose, that can be really helpful in identifying your one thing. And you can also read the book, The One Thing. But when I look at two decisions, I'm like, okay, does this align with my one thing? And would future me think that this aligns with my one thing? And that can be a really helpful frame. And so asking yourself, what would future you do in this situation is probably one of the most valuable things. If you can look back and look at, okay, if I'm me in a year from now, what would me in a year from now do? Or what would me in 5 years from now do? And usually you'll make the better decision by looking at it from that frame. For some reason, when we just like to think about our present selves, we're like, oh, I can't decide because we have emotions involved, we have how we want to do it involved, and some of those things can really cloud your decision making. So if you can take yourself out of that, put yourself in the third person and be like, okay, what would me in 5 years do? Well, that's a different person. It's still me, but it's a different person. Well, they would choose to do this, and this is how they would act. And that can really yield some positive results. So the first step is going to be to evaluate information. So if you evaluated your information and you're still struggling to make a decision, the next best step, in my opinion, is going to be to seek other perspectives and tools if you haven't decided. The first perspective I like to seek is my mentor's perspective or my partner's perspective. I lean on those two a lot about which they think is better. We talk through this. I hear myself saying some good things because I think that's one of the best things when you're talking about problems within your life. It's actually just hearing yourself say things. And you're like, okay, that makes sense, that doesn't make sense. And then also with the partner there, your mentor there, they are there to challenge you. And they can be like, do you really think that's a good decision? Have you thought about this? And they can bring up perspectives you haven't thought about. So using mentors can be very helpful. Now, on top of mentors, you can reflect on your past decisions you've made and how you felt about it. So let's say you're presented with a job opportunity. You've got two different jobs. One pays more, and then one has a little bit different features that are better in your judgment. And you really can't decide, do I choose pay or do I choose coworkers and job environment? Well, I would encourage you to look back at your past jobs and what have you valued more? Have you valued having more money and being able to live a little bit more comfortably? Or have you valued those coworkers and that job environment and that environment of growth? I can't answer it for you, but looking back in your past decisions can sometimes yield those results. So look at your past decisions and how you felt after you made them, and that can show you the light and show which decision you should choose. Now, on top of that, I would encourage you to also rely on your intuition. I think your intuition is a tool, and typically I think we know what to do, but sometimes our emotions, how we want to do it, environment, social pressures tend to get in the way of what we know we need to do. So ask yourself, what's my intuition saying to me? And if you still haven't decided or use intuition as a tool, another thing you can use is the SWOT method, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of each decision. I like to think about this in chess. I use the SWOT all the time when I'm attacking and stuff like that. So think about what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of each decision within these two things. So that's seeking perspectives and tools if needed. So the first step is going to be to evaluate that information and then seeking perspectives and tools. Now, once you've done these things, I think you'll be ready to make a decision. And once you're ready to make a decision, you have to commit and you want to not regret this decision. I would encourage you to not put too much emphasis on overthinking, social pressure, or perfectionism. If you can identify one of those three things in your decision making, disregard the social pressure, disregard the overthinking, disregard the perfectionism, because those will lead you to not make a decision, which is a decision which has a huge opportunity cost. And so with that being said, you want to not fall into the trap of analysis paralysis, just sitting and looking at these decisions for weeks. You want to not fall into what Jimmy down the street has to say about your decision, because who cares about Jimmy? On top of that, you don't want to fall into perfectionism saying, oh, I can't choose this thing because I have to be perfect. That will lead you to trouble, at least it has in my experience. So those three things will make you and lead you to the wrong decision. So you want to just simply commit and take action. Once you've evaluated your information, you've gone through perspectives and your tools, commit and take action. Even if it's not perfect, even if you're overthinking about it, even if you have social pressure, commit to it and take action and eliminate the possibility of anything else. So if we're relying on the examples of the two jobs, if you choose the job, commit to the job, don't even think about the pay of the other job. Don't even think about the environment of the other job, because you're in the situation you're in and you're committed to it for your set period of time, however you want to be committed, how long you're committed. And once you commit and take action, I bet you'll feel a lot better. And if you don't feel a lot better, if you feel like you made the wrong decision and you regret it, the best way to not regret it is to think to yourself, number one, I made the wrong decision, but this will lead to me having a better story. Let's say you chose the wrong job, you chose one that pays more, but it's a terrible environment, but you're still gonna grow in that environment. You're still gonna create the culture necessary to make it similar to the other one. And that's just a better story, honestly. I think that's like, I went to this high-paying job, terrible environment, but I made it a priority to create a different culture, to still grow with that environment. That's a better story to me. On top of better story, you can ask yourself, will this decision matter in 5 years? And if you really want to expand it, if you really want to get crazy, will this matter in 1,000 years? Because I guarantee you it will have no significance in 1,000 years, because you will be dead and everybody around you will be dead. And on top of that, in 5 years, I bet it won't matter no matter what. Even if you had a shitty job for a year, it won't matter in 5 years because it'll be a completely different one. Now, on top of that, those two things can be helpful, a will it matter and a better story, but you can also just laugh at yourself. Don't take yourself so seriously. Often in my life, I found that I just take myself so serious, I can't just look back and laugh at myself about things. But the decisions I made in the past, instead of being hard on myself, I'm like, that's funny that I even made that decision. Like that's just silly that I made that decision. That's helpful for me. And on top of laughing on yourself, you can also just have radical acceptance and realize that there is nothing you can do about it now. There is nothing you can choose to change about the decision that you made a month ago. You have to just own it, learn from it, and then change the decision in the future. And you can also use that line of thinking to think about your past decisions and then how you felt on it. So that was how to make a decision between two things. Sometimes it can be really difficult to do. Is if you're struggling to make a decision and you like these decision videos, please leave a comment, because it tells me what you guys like, what you guys don't like, and if you also will like and subscribe, it helps the channel a lot.